I have a little container full of hemp parts and a little container full of often Hawaiian cacao nibs, you know, and between those two, if I can find a little yogurt and ideally a little bit of fruit of some kind or a leaf of some kind, it's good for days on the road, and I've needed it. Like I've learned, don't check it, put it in your carry-on bag, because you never know when you're going to end up in a blizzard. So that's hemp hearts. Does everybody know how to make hemp hearts? It's, you take the whole seed and you dehull. You take the outer hull off. It's a fantastic high protein mode. I personally, now that I grow a lot of hemp that's dioecious or seeded, I will eat the entire seed rather than just dehulling it. But hemp hearts are a great way to go. So we've asked now, who has eaten hemp today? Have you eaten hemp today, Joy?
Not today.
Not today. How many people are wearing hemp today? Anybody? All right, I'm going to give you, Joy's probably heard me say this, I'm going to give you too much information and start with my underwear. You wearing hemp?
I know nothing about him. That's why I'm here.
Got it. All right, awesome. So, my underwear is made by my sweetheart. She, there's a provider in Colorado, a mother and daughter company called Enviro Textiles that for years before hemp worked in China, so they've got connections. And China's the fiber leader. My pants are hemp fiber. This is what the fiber looks like. There's two sides of the fiber. Bast is the long fiber, and hurd is the inner core. The hot market in hemp right now is when you separate and clean the hurd. This used to be like the junk that nobody could get rid of, like maybe we could sell it as guinea pig litter. And by the way, the Queen of England beds her horses on hemp hurd because it's microbial balanced and much more comfortable than wheat straw or any of that stuff. This is the hot market in fiber right now because of two things mainly, the bedding, and this is hempcrete, and it's easy. My sons and I made this in a minute. Building hempcrete, if you want to do a great house, listen to George Rixey. He's going to be here, I forgot which day, I think tomorrow. And he built a hempcrete house here on Maui, and more than one, and he's building more. But the basics are hurd mixed with lime and a little bit of water. And in a wet climate, here's a little tip, 1% vitamin C, and you're reducing any worries about mildew and stuff like that. But pass it around because it sequesters carbon by the lime hardening as it goes. And so feel free to just squeeze it, but you don't have to be gentle with it and pass it around. You can finish it and with like a lime stucco. So those are the basics of seed and fiber, and then flower is where our cannabinoids and terpenes reside. And that's the hot market in the world right now is CBD, which is one of 111 known cannabinoids. So we're just getting started in our knowledge of what's happening with hemp and cannabis. So that's just a little primer on the architecture of the plant. And now I'd like to introduce my dear friend Lelle. So the story with Lelle is when I met her in our first conversation at a Hawaii Farmers Union convention, I think, a couple of years ago in Hilo. She, within a minute, she had my eyes rolling on talking about hydrosols as opposed to distillations, and she has this copper still, and she's the kind of person who would be good at anything that she did. And thank goodness natural extractions of plant material is what she initially put her focus on before she was doing a lot of stuff with hemp. And she realized the importance of adding the hemp knowledge to her arsenal on that, and that she's going to be talking about all of that stuff and her businesses, because what she does in the industry is really interesting too. But the truth is that the CBD craze, is everybody aware? Anybody doesn't know what CBD is? Okay. CBD is one of the components of the flower side of the plant, and it's non-psychoactive. In other words, THC is the psychoactive one, and then there's 110 others. They operate in conjunction with one another. It's called the entourage effect, the cannabinoids with other components of the plant, such as terpenes, which is what gives cannabis and many plants its scent, and bioflavonoids and other components of the plant. They all work together. CBD isolated is a gold rush right now. It is a huge, huge market, and a lot of people are getting into it. Is that isolate?
This is isolate.
So yes. That is pure CBD. Did you do it?
No, this is through a great farm in Kentucky that I absolutely love, though. Is this on? Okay.
So I'm a whole plant kind of guy. Not my first choice isn't isolating individual components of the plant, but to the extent that there's a lot of different extractions, Lelle is a key person to listen to about doing things slightly different than the herd. Because if you're a farmer and you want to make a living as an entrepreneur, it's going to be tricky to just grow wholesale CBD forever. That market isn't, like all wholesale markets, is not going to be the long-term benefit to the farmer. The long-term benefit to the farmer is going to be creating a product and showing, as Dolly Parton would say, this is a famous thing she said years ago, honey, you want to succeed, you got to be first, better, or different. And we're not first. But anything grown in Hawaii has the opportunity, obviously, to be better or different. This is getting to be a long introduction, so I want to pass over to Lelle, but my own product, I'll just briefly show you my own personal bottle that I kind of tote around with me. You can tell I grow in Vermont. I live in New Mexico and cultivate there too, but it's a 100% farm-to-table product that says Vermont. And I'm trying to walk the walk. It's compostable labels, it's non-toxic stickum, super expensive. But the point is, you do that with a Hawaii mindset, thinking regenerative, and that's where your advantage is. But when it comes to getting the good stuff out of the plant, there's almost no one better than this wonderful lady right here, Lelle. So take it away, Lelle.
Thank you so much. Doug, why don't you put that right here so that people can see it? It deserves to be on a pedestal. So that's near and dear to my heart because that was the first CBD that I made lipstick with. That was really awesome. But thank you for the introduction. My name is Lelle. And I am a botanical extractor, distiller, perfumer, cannabis consultant, and farm lover. So I grew up very interested in plants as a child. My parents had a forest, and the house was in the middle of the forest. And so while they were off working, I would be playing and out in the yard exploring trees and other botanicals. When I was 6 years old, I tried to make my first perfume out of dried roses and water. It smelled like dried roses and water. And then in 5th grade, I got first place at the science fair for oil density testing. And through my teenage years, I explored more into soap making, different things, and into my 20s, I took a Perfumology 1 and 2 course and was educated on the importance of sourcing when you make products. And that really was the game changer for me, is going down the rabbit hole when I found out that essential oils have active components to them. They're not just smells, they were the original medicines. And that just blew my mind because I just, as a child, and especially growing up in the 80s and 90s, I think everybody was TV dinners and fake scents, everything, and then not suspecting that was wrong. And so once I learned about health and wellness, that's really what encouraged me to start making my own products for people that were coming in for massages. I was learning how to be a massage therapist, and very quickly we sold out of every ingredient that I was using in the formulas that I had, and I just really loved that. I loved putting something on someone and seeing their life better the moment that they were done with their session. And so in 2011, I moved out here expecting Hawaii to be this utopia of botanicals, which it is, but on the shelves, very little products that were real. I think everything was named a Hawaiian name, but synthetic aroma. Most synthetic aroma, 95%, is petroleum based. That means that when you're smelling all these Hawaiian scents, you're really smelling gasoline derived, or petroleum derived products. And to me, that's wrong. I think that people need to be able to have health and wellness that's real. But to be mindful, I know that there's a lot of companies that are multi-level marketing that are pushing essential oils, in heavy usage. And just like I look at someone who may be having a shoebox full of prescription medication, I don't see that it's a healthy route either. I think balance is the key. So as I started exploring out here, I realized that the only way that I was going to be able to find real Hawaiian botanicals was to do it myself. And so I had invited somebody into, I opened a spa about 2 years after I moved here, and someone had told me, I'm going to wait for this plane to pass. This may happen a few times today. I do apologize. We're right in the path line. As I brought this gentleman into my spa, who had claimed to distill essential oils, etc. It was only through another distiller, when I showed her his oils, that she enlightened me to the fact that he had adulterated the oils. That when you put essential oil on paper, it should evaporate and leave no trace, and his were spreading and leaving a pool of oil on the paper that that she had showed me. And then that was the moment where I just started picking up the phone and calling farms and saying, hey, you know, what are you growing? What are you doing? Can I come see your operation? And so I did that. I have hundreds of flights since then, all around Hawaii, and didn't leave for 5.5 years until last year. Just in Hawaii, I had over 300 flights. So with that, I built strong relationships with farmers, and I really recognized that there's a great need out here for the ability for farmers to have multiple streams of income, because a lot of farms or people that have property with fruit and things like that, they will sell it for food and then that's it. They don't know what else to do with it. So I take great joy in teaching people how to extract your own botanicals, even if it's just in your backyard and, you know, from your garden. And I feel like it's really, really, really essential, especially in the hemp market, with the way the laws are changing. If we are empowered to extract our own, it doesn't matter what they do on the top. If, you know, say that they enforce that you've got to get a medical cannabis license, okay, that's $130, and now you have the right to grow your own small backyard plants. And if you understand how to extract it, you can treat your family. If you have a little still, which I do import stills from Portugal, I teach people how to use them. If you know how to, if you have a still, if there's a problem with the water, you can make your own water. If you've got your still, you can make your own medicine with your plants. And so that was really my journey for the first 5.5 years out here, just really focusing in on teaching people that, but then also, you know, teaching. I taught a couple workshops at the UH, and then it was a trip about 4 years ago that Vincent Mina came out and toured the Sandalwood Forest on the Big Island. And he said, hey, you want to come to the state convention? You know, it's the same weekend. And so I said, sure. And that's when Doug ran across the field mistaking me for somebody else. And I said, oh, there's a hemp tent here. I'll come and listen. And it was great. There was good information. I felt mixed reviews and emotions when I heard the speakers, because, you know, there was a lot of information that just kind of blew my mind. I didn't want anybody to feel alienated by the market. And I just didn't know how crazy it is in the rest of the world right now. In the hemp industry. So I said, well, if this is going to be the next agricultural revolution, because we're finishing, you know, the sugar cane, if this is what's next, I need to educate myself, and so I can share it with the farmers here. Because if I don't, and they start going down this rabbit hole of thinking that it's going to be, you know, millionaires overnight, you're going to have a lot of people losing their farms. And it's not like the mainland. If you have a problem here, you could lose everything and you could be gone. And so for me, I'm very passionate about making sure that if somebody wants to get into this, let's do it right. Let's make a plan, understand all the variables, and then you can make a phased-in approach to what you want to do. And that's all the way from whether you're going to grow to just make products, you know, etc. So that was 4 years ago. I started carrying Steve Sakala's products, Mata Botanics. I hope these planes aren't going to be like this all day. I apologize. You can, okay? All right. So I started carrying Steve's products in my spa, and I had an adjacent business that was looking to expand, and they thought it'd be a great idea to call the Department of Health and tell them I was distributing marijuana out of the spa. And thank God I have great relationships. Thank you, Senator Mike Gabbard, if you're out there. Within 24 hours, we were able to show that actually CBD was legal thanks to the 2014 Farm Bill, and that what we had, yes, it has CBD, but they were trying to make us change the wording on it. So they suggested that instead of having CBD, that we put on our promotions phytocannabinoid rich hemp extract. And so, and so within a week, I made this really big poster with lots of cannabis graphics all about hemp, and put that on our front door, which was adjacent to their front door, so that all of their patients that they were walking up and down the hallways with their physical therapy not only would know what it is, but how to use it, and that it's legal and safe. And that's when I got over being scared, because it was, I mean, that was a shocking moment. I thought, you know, I didn't know what to think. You know, when somebody calls the Department of Health, like, do they have protocol that they're just going to come in and, you know, check my lab and, you know, take my stuff, or, you know, whatever. And so there was a nervous time with that. And that's when I started really connecting more with farms on the mainland. Like, what are you guys doing? And it was really hard, because everything was just saying science experiments. Everything is experimental crop. There was nothing for sale. You know, so I really didn't know where to turn with it. And so I knew I was sourcing from Doug, because I knew him. And so and I knew Steve, and so that's really where I started out for the first couple years and playing around with stuff, even though personally I had used marijuana infusions, for about a decade. So obviously for retail purposes or anything, out there, I was only using hemp. And so last year when the volcano went off, I sold my business in Kona because I couldn't breathe. I was in a mask. There's a lot of ash going on. And thank God, because when I came back here, I said, well, what am I going to do next? I'm not busy like I was for the first time in 6 years. I wasn't committed to be in a space where I was jumping into spa treatments and then into the lab, back and forth. I just had this opening, and it was really wonderful. I spent the summer terpenes is a new hot thing right now, but for perfumers, for people with essential oils, it's what we've always been playing with. So if you want to get a little education on terpenes, we're going to dive more into that tomorrow, but just a brief summary in case you're not going to be here. Terpenes are like the building blocks of essential oils, and they're one component of those. So if you think about a Lego, a complete set on the box, that would be your essential oil. And all the little pieces that go together are going to be your terpenes that make that up. And so for me, I thought, well, as I'm talking to people about extracts and hemp and sourcing things to make my product lines, everybody was really just in wonderment and not having any information about, yes, sir?
How do you spell terpenes?
Terpenes is Terpenes.
Associated with smell.
That's correct. So, and I'll get into that in 1 second. So when I was looking at educating people, I realized that that's the most important thing. Once people can understand things and they want to learn, then that just it's like a cafeteria. The world opens up to you when you start just getting a little insight into the magic, not only of this plant, but all plants. And so I made these spreadsheets, and on these spreadsheets it was like every chemovar that I knew of cannabis, and the smells, the aromas, the taste, the bioavailability, the what's called CAS registry number. That allows you to understand everything about that terpene, like the volatility of it, the temperature, that it can have combustion, along with its uses. So once I geeked out on that and had that chart done, someone had mentioned the Jamaica Cannabis Convention to me and asked if I'd be a speaker there, and I'd never been to Jamaica, so I said yes, and I got in there, and I really didn't expect to fall in love with Jamaica the way that I did, but it's exactly the same, I think, latitude as Maui, and so a lot of the same plants that are only found in Maui, Jamaica is the other place. So it was just really cool, and the people were all very loving and very genuine, the same way, here. And so just having that love and culture of the respect here, it was very easy for me to transfer that there. And there was a lot of international people, though, at that one. And then that's when I woke up and went, wow, we really don't have a lot of education happening in Hawaii, and we really need to. And I don't know the answers yet. And so I started just traveling around. I joke I'm the Hawaiian refugee for hemp, because we don't have the setup here yet, and there's such gray information with the laws. I just started traveling around and finding contract manufacturers, finding who are the big guys producing hemp out there, and how can I meet them and find out what they did right and what they did wrong, and how can that then benefit the farmers out here. And so that's what I did this past year and a half, and it's really been wonderful and sad at the same time, because as much as I'm hopeful and I'm excited, for us to be able to go on this journey together, I know that it is definitely something that we need a massive amount of education in, and it's very tricky. This is, they call it the Wild West, and I hate that cliche only because I've heard it so much, but it's very appropriate. There's just like in the beginning when I had somebody, sell me bad product that led me into extraction, similar thing happened last year, and it was just overnight, and thank God I was able to get my money back because I'm assertive, but, for others, not the case, and you see people just really hurting, and that are wanting to do it right and not knowing where to turn. Yes, sir.
What are some big companies that you've come across,
What are some?
Well, so that's the hard part is the majority of the companies that I've come across are even no longer around. They split up. It's a lot of people coming together and breaking down. So I don't want to be misquoting, but I have heard and I believe to be true that Gen Canna, I was told that filed for bankruptcy. They were the biggest producer. United Cannabis I'm working with. They've been around for 10 years, and we carry their products called Prana on our website. And they did both medical cannabis as well as hemp. And so they've got projects. They've got a 300,000 square foot facility in Tennessee, and projects in Jamaica, projects in Colorado and Colombia. So those are the ones that I prefer, working with along with a couple of others. And because I know them, it's this kind of catch because they are big, they have big minimums. But because I'm direct with them and I have relationships because we talk formulations and everything else, I'm able to have that as a resource for me to extract things. And so this year has been really fun. Actually, this week has been really fun. I had one farmer reach out and say, we've got nobody to harvest, we have nowhere to dry, we have no money to dry, and can you help us? And this was in Ventura, California. And we were trying to figure out what to do. This was maybe a week's time, 2 weeks went by because he had done his Department of Ag test, and it was day 29 when he came across, asking for help. And the fires out there were actually a blessing. He harvested and he field dried, and because the fires were happening and the winds were happening, God was his big dryer. And so they were able to get about 40 tons harvested, and I have facilitated them getting that processed in Colorado. And yesterday was the first delivery, and today's the second. So that's my first farm to table one that I'm really excited about. But it's really, that's a rarity. Most people that are having issues right now, it's really sad. You're seeing that they're having crop loss, they're having mold issues, they're having people just really have devastation because they weren't planning right. They knew they wanted to grow, they put things in the ground without knowing where they're going to sell it, without knowing who's going to buy it or what kind of products they're going to make. And so unfortunately, that's what I want to caution people and use that as a learning lesson, because there's a lot of exciting things about hemp, and I don't want to be the doomsayer. I just want to set the table for people to understand that it's every step of the way. If you educate yourself and do it properly, then this can be a really exciting time. I've seen challenges with making products for my own product line, just in trying to figure out labeling and what claims can you make, what claims can you not make. And the governor put out a mandate in May stating that it's illegal to add CBD to food and cosmetic products. However, when I did my research, and this has been months, and it was only I think last month that I came across the FDA link on the website, the FDA website, specifically talking about cannabinoids in products. And the laws with skincare are that you do not have to have FDA approval to add an ingredient into a topical product as long as it does not cause disease or harm. What's more, if you choose to make a product that has not been classified as a drug, prior to it being classified as a drug, you're grandfathered in. Wow. If you think about it, what has everybody been saying this year? They've been saying, I'm waiting for FDA guidelines to come out. Well, that is what they kind of hope to do, right? Because we've got CBD that was Epidiolex, but nobody's talking about the other minor cannabinoids in a drug classification yet, like CBC, CBG, CBN. And even though we've got kind of a flooded market with CBD, these are the next hot ones. And so it's really exciting seeing that there's people working on the genetics to try to expand out beyond just CBD to understand more cannabinoids, to be able to understand that it's not just cannabis that cannabinoids exist. Things like chocolate, kava, black pepper, these sorts of things, not only do they amplify some effects, but they have them naturally in them. So when you understand that and you can start expanding your mind, then you really are able to take on your health and wellness to another level. You compare things, based on your ailments. And so that's really what my passion is when I start looking at making products. This year has really been about consulting with companies on the mainland while I've been navigating around and making products, but always coming back to Hawaii. And welcome, Ray. So Ray's been really great. He started the Hawaii Hemp Farmers Association, asked me to be a board member. And so it's been great as we've been working on legislation to also have people from the mainland saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and we're collectively trying to make the best program possible that empowers both the small farmers, but understanding that scalable agriculture is going to be part of it. As much as you want it all to stay small, I think that there's room for both, and the more that you understand and can navigate, then you have affordable health care that you're in control of. And so for me, I feel that that's really where my mission is at right now. I've partnered with a gentleman that has medical distribution for the last 20 years in all 50 states. And so part of I can't ignore where my roots have come from. So yes, I'm making big scalable products, but my heart is also in empowering every person, whether it's a single person, all the way to thousands of people, into basic extraction for what suits their needs, and hopefully being able to set the table that no matter what the legislation turns, that we can as a team really be successful. And I really love the idea of having the products be artisan and niche, because that's how you can get that value add. So about a year ago, again, right before I went to Jamaica, I said, okay, if this is something where we can't put cannabinoids in food because we're in Hawaii and they're really hard lined on it, where can I do that? And so I met a facility that has been for 15 months in the process of licensing, and now just last month they got their licenses and everything they need in the clear, but in California. And the deal I have with them is I can talk to my farmers, even if you're not farming hemp, like what are you farming, and that we can infuse with cannabinoids and then sell in the legal market in California and other states until we can do it here. And so that's really been a part of why, again, I traveled around so much, but we've got it. So this year, I love Maui Olive Orchard, their Olinda Olive Orchard is there. There's Maui Olive Oil Company, but we're working with Olinda Olive Orchard, and we've agreed to take their olive oil this year, and we're going to be taking that out there, so the whole harvest, and infusing it with some lovely cannabinoids, and then having that available. And so although we're not farming in Hawaii, hey, we can do it. And so that's just one. And I want to do the salts, having like a little kit box, because they have leaves that you can do with tea. They've got salt, we can add it into the salt and then have something really beautiful. And so as much as I would love for that to be here, I have to be real about timing, and the prices are all over, so it's all in steps. So I'll ship back, we'll ship online if people want to order things, but we've got distribution in Oahu, Anaheim, Phoenix, and then we're expanding into a few other states this coming year as hubs for us to be able to navigate around America, and we're doing a lot of drop shipping. So
How much for a kilo of isolate?
that's a difficult question to ask, simply because most places charge you on volume, and after me, now that I'm processing my own stuff in the US, then I'm going to be very, very competitive with it. I've seen large companies as low as $1,800 a kilo on bigger volume. And then, last year, the highest I saw it was about 9,000. It's all over the place. The more important thing than pricing is sourcing and knowing what you're going to use it for, and that it's safe. There is a lot of, scary things that can happen with isolate. People selling, bags of sugar, people having heavy metals in there, or neurotoxin pesticides. You will see all of these things out there. So the best thing that you can do is know your source, just like any other food item, any other, plant thing. If you know your sourcing, not only are you going to be able to hopefully get better pricing, but you'll also be able to have the soil testing, the water testing, what they call chain of custody, so that it's safe. and then really identify and know that CBD isolate, although it exists, this is what big pharma is going after. This is the one that likely will become classified as a drug and no longer available. What we will be doing, having more available, is the crude and the full spectrum distillate, things like that, where you can extract the whole plant like Doug has done in this. So we'll cover more about the extracts tomorrow. To extract, but it's good to understand and know all of them. I use a variety. I have a beverage that I've developed, and it's a water soluble, and that one was incredible for my friend who had tremors. Since he was a little boy, he has had tremors, to this effect. And I bumped into him about, I told him about it. This was the other thing I didn't mention. So right when I started carrying Steve's products, I learned about it, and I went home and I told my housemate at the time, hey, you got to try this, because even his email was called gshakes@gmail.com, because he had tremors since he was 3 years old. And I told him about it. I went back to Big Island for about a month. I came back, and when I came back, he was just sitting there steady. I mean, just solid, totally fine. I said, what's going on, G? And he said that he had been taking CBD, and I went, that's really where that was an activator for me too, because it became much more than just let's make money and let's get in before the boom. It was like, hey, my housemate's better. That's great. And so I bumped into him about 2 months ago, and he told me that he hadn't been taking it because it's too expensive. And that's the other part. I believe that there's a balance, and that's why, even though Big Ag, I feel like people are either for it or against it, and I can understand the symphony. There's a need for both, because in controlled dosing, there are people that need that, and there are, like the water solubles. Those are coming more from the bioscience backgrounds, and so for him, I used the water soluble, and I videotaped it, and I'm happy to share that with anybody. Maybe tomorrow I can get it up on the screen. I didn't think about it until just now, but we've got him. At first he's trying to put it in the glass, and his hand is like this, and 9 minutes later, he's a little bit, and an hour later, he's like that. And that to me is just incredible. And I know that on the dosing that I gave him, it cost me about 1/16 of a penny. If I were to sell that or look in a retail market, it's hundreds of dollars. So I'm looking at, I don't want to race to the bottom, but I do believe in having an option for both a compassionate care, being able to, if you've got ailments and things, we're definitely price structuring and that. And then the ones where it's artisan and it's fun and it's high end, that's like our olive oil with the 24 karat gold in it that you're going to drizzle on your plate and have awesome parties. My favorite Thanksgiving ever was at Steve's farm, Hononel Farms, down on the Big Island. And I made this cheesecake, and I sliced it in 8, and I put a little hidden turkey in one slice, and I covered it in whipped cream and drizzled this CBD honey all over it, and everybody took a slice, and the person who got the cheesecake slice got a CBD massage in the spa. Super fun, so you can take it at every level. You can make things special, and it's really important to do so. I want to see in Hawaii, if my perfect dream would come true, it would be that we've got affordable dosing for everybody, accessible, and then also having those fun high-end things that are, able to be specific to farms, being able to tout that this origin came from this, that this is this region of Hawaii with this, with these terpenes and these genetics. I think that would be really wonderful. I know that some people have expressed fears and saying that the rest of the market is going to crash pricing and Hawaii is going to miss out. I don't believe so. Because if it was true, in 2013, when I came out here and was starting to do my artisan botanicals, because, how many, since the 1800s, they've been making synthetics, I would have failed. But very quickly in my spa, through extracting my own botanicals and telling the story, because that's what it's about. People buy stories and they want to know it's real. I was the #1 spa on Yelp because of my botanicals. Even though in my parking lot you couldn't even see it. It was such a hole-in-the-wall place. But my clients were the Ritz-Carlton and the Westin because I had high-end botanicals. And I was able to say, no, I'm not going to give you a discount on that. It took me this many months to grow and harvest and distill. And then when you tell that, people don't have a problem with it. And I see the same thing for hemp. I know that People want it to be, 100%. I've heard that some people want 100% Hawaii hemp on the label. Right now, it's not possible. I'd like to see a program where you can do both, where you can say, hey, this is certified that it's 100%. That's great. But I know through my experience with other botanicals that you get to a point of scalability where you can't have 100% from Hawaii. And as long as you're transparent, I believe, as long as you're transparent and you have at least 51%, then you can say, hey, you know what, this has some Hawaiian and some elsewhere. But I don't want to force somebody to know that they can only source here or they can't make their products. I want farmers to have multiple streams of income. I want you guys to be able to look at the plant and go, hey, not only are we going to, have this for, maybe you want a cannabinoid like CBD or CBG, but maybe you don't. Maybe you want to make fibers out of it. Maybe you want to make bedding or essential oils. I want you guys to be able to understand all the options and then hone in on what you feel best, and then support each other in that, because it's going to take all of us working together and understanding, even with personality differences, we are one tiny, tiny little speck in the ocean, and we've got to support each other. So, I see that as really great hope. Yes, hi.
Hey, so thank you so much. I work at a juice bar on the Big Island. Thinking about.
Can't hear you over here. You have a mic? Is there a...
Yeah, if you want to take this, you're welcome to, sir.
Sure. So, I live on the Big Island, and I work at a juice bar in Hilo, and we've been talking about using possibly like sun leaves or excess like stems as in juicing cannabis.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could speak to like how like proper ways of juicing it, or like the microbiology associated with juicing with it and health benefits.
So I prefer macerating juicers to centrifuge because it presses it more so than breaking up the molecules. And that would be true with any juicing that I've seen. I haven't done juicing myself, but there's a gentleman on the Big Island that has 10 acres, and he can speak to that. So I don't mind calling him tonight, and tomorrow in the extracts talk, I'll report back with what he said. I'm a big believer. If I don't know a specific answer, I'll tell you, but I'll also find you the answer. So if any of you guys want to ask, more deep questions, or you have specific things about your spa, my email is LELLE at LELLEVIE.com. And I absolutely love answering questions. Sometimes people are, 1 degree away from a solution and an aha moment for something spectacular. So if there's any way that I can support and help you guys with that, I would love to. I'm really excited about the tent here today. We've got a lot of group effort that occurred to make it happen. Thank you, Vincent, for really alerting me to the needs with the hemp tent, and thank you, NOCO and Global CBD for really rising to the occasion to make this possible. Global CBD is absolutely my favorite. I don't like a lot of people's products. I try a lot of things. I'm like the Simon of other people's products when it comes to flavor, taste, aroma, and authenticity. Steve Sakala's Monobotanics is one of them that I love, and Global CBD is just absolutely phenomenal, and they're made in Maui here as well. So definitely check them out. And I believe that you guys know a majority about me, but I would love to hear from you guys. What is it that you'd like to hear us address and cover and learn on these next panels? And then I'll try to help share that with the other speakers.
How much a pound does a farmer get for the raw flowers?
That really varies. So in Hawaii, I believe we're going to be able to command higher pricing.
40, 50?
I've seen it as low as like $100 a pound for wholesale smokable flower, all the way up to $800. It really, really depends on who you're talking about, and if you're direct buying from a farmer, or are there middlemen along the way. There's many people that are getting into this industry that are brokers. A lot of them are real estate agents, things like that, and they don't understand that this is plants. There's an expiration date. It's not like selling a house.
You mentioned moving the product from California to Colorado in the raw form?
Yep. So we what they did was they harvested it, field dried, and then we put it through a combine. and they homogenized it, and then
Did they get specific analysis to get over through Nevada?
You know, I don't know. I'm not part of the chain of custody as far as what route the truckers drove. But it was a refrigerated truck, 2 drivers. They were switching out overnight. I'm not sure that logistics. I was working directly with the farmer and with the lab and making sure that those parts were complete, and they worked on the logistics.
There's no federal requirement to have a specific analysis before you.
Well, they have you have to in California. They have the Department of Ag, the COA.
But interstate, I'm talking.
I didn't get into the details of that. Yeah, but I can ask because I'm going to be touching base with them tonight.
You'll need it. You will need
Well, I'm leveraging my property in Haiku to buy Southern Oregon right now. Today, my daughter's making an earnest money agreement. That's how sick our legislature is here. Lynn,
Yeah.
where's Lynn? Kikoi. What is wrong with our legislature?
Well, sir, I believe that there's conflicting opinions as far as feeling comfortable. In my own opinion, and what I'd like to share is that cannabis is legal. Hemp is cannabis, and so is marijuana. The illegal portion is the levels of THC. So with that, there's people that need to understand and have that shared with them so that they're not scared to be able to embrace this plant. And we are working as hard as we can on that legislation. It's baby steps. And, you know, in 1999, we were the first state to do an experimental hemp program, and it's just taking a long time. And there's a lot of things that people need to understand, that it's not just growing and it's not and then go big scale. We do have a lot of things, environmental things to think about as well. And then I know that those are part of the topics of discussion right now as we're trying to decide, well, what kind of recommendations are we going to give? Because yes, it's in a wonderful world, it'd be easy to just transport biomass all 50 states, no big deal. But we live in a unique environment where we have ecosystems that are may have an invasive species on one side of the island that doesn't exist on the other. So we have to be mindful in creating a structure of that, because what we don't want to do is just go full bore, open up, and then now we've made a mistake and that's irreversible. So I think that that's part of why it's taking a little bit more time for things like that. And I do believe there's solutions. And this is my own personal opinion. I would love to see where, you know, if we have smokable flower, that we go ahead and get that either in a fresh frozen or in a cured environment to where we can get approval and get that sent across. I'd love to see microgreens the same way, treat it like salad, you know, and then if it's large biomass, then we've got a solution for that. And it's got to have, you know, dried, it's got to be inspected just like any other ag product if you are going to move it between the islands. So I know there's a lot of debate going back and forth on that. I've heard that there's, conflicting opinions on having dispensaries in charge of CBD or not. I don't believe that we should have CBD only available in dispensaries. So I know that because of that, you know, it's not just hemp legislation that our legislators are working on. They're working on all kinds of things. So as all these crazy bits of information are coming at them, I think they're just taking their time. I know I spoke with one senator's right-hand man who said that they were looking for federal guidelines as a roadmap for Hawaii. And so, you know, there's some things that I would say, okay, but I haven't seen that work in any other forum. You know, we're special. And so, you know, there's really a lot that needs to occur. And yeah.
I just wanted to address while we have this expertise here, because we also have a number of producers between Steve, Ray, Greg, you, and myself, on the question of types of extraction if you're going for the flower market. And briefly on the gentleman's question, I've seen as low as $20, $25 a pound wholesale on the mainland, and up to $2,000 to $3,000 a pound. It changes seasonally, regionally, and at the moment, since I cultivate in northern Vermont, the minute you go over into Canada, at the moment Canada has full cannabis legalization. In their dispensaries, CBD flower is higher than THC flower per pound right now. So, but one of our big themes in this tent all weekend is going to be how an independent farmer entrepreneur can move beyond relying on wholesale markets for a longer term, more regenerative market so they're not slave to those huge things. But
that's right, making it special, allows you to dictate your price regardless of what the market is.
And so
You know?
just really quickly on extraction, if I could, since we have some folks that are really new to everything, can you just run down a few types of extractions that are popular between what I do, which is decarb, ethanol,
Yes.
cold ethanol,
Yes.
those kind of things, and explain it for new people, like how you're extracting cannabinoids from the plant.
Yes, and we'll get more into that tomorrow, but I'll just give a little breakdown. So when you're growing the plant, there's what's called biomass, which would be, the plant, and then you have what's called the cola, which is going to be the flower portion. If you remove the cola, that's the smokable flower. The rest of the plant is what they're calling biomass. Some people are mistakenly calling biomass the entire thing, or maybe they're selling it as biomass, depending on if it's an industrial hemp. They're not harvesting those flowers, so I would call that one a biomass, the whole plant, because they're just going to take it down, whether it's by hand or by machine, and then you have options for removing the stems, breaking it down. They have hammer milling and bucking, shucking, all the different terms we can get into tomorrow for the extractions. You can dry it in the field. You can turn it, there's a lot of people using tobacco dryers and things like that. I've got a friend who's just ordered and delivered, it's in Medford, Oregon, 2 $5 million dryers that can dry 75,000 pounds an hour per dryer. I mean, that's how sophisticated you can get into that. Once you've got that in that form, then you can extract into primary extraction, which is crude, which is what this is here. So this has your plant waxes, fats, or lipids, and all the cannabinoids, terpenes, etc. To get this, you can do an extraction called that's CO2 extraction. They have ethanol extraction. I've seen isopropyl alcohol extraction, hydrocarbon extraction, which is you can use which is a propane or a hexane. So there's many options that people have with getting to a primary extraction. Some people even use this to infuse into their final products. It's really, once you get it into this level, it's really preference. If you choose not to remove the chlorophyll and the waxes, it can make it age quicker. The shelf life kind of goes down. So once you have it into the primary extraction, depending on your equipment, then you do what's called winterization and decarbing. Some machines now, as people have been playing with this plant through the seasons, they've come up with proprietary equipment or unique setups that can actually decarb and winterize what they call inline, which would be in one system. In the opinion of the big extractors that I know, they don't like using inline because if one part breaks, your whole system's down. So they have a series of systems to get it to that level. But basically, winterizing, you're going to take this extract and have it in an ethanol, put it in a freezer overnight, and that's going to separate out the waxes and lipids. And then you would either do a short path distillation or falling film distillation. And so that is one step. Decarbing is going to activate from an acid the CBD and turn it in CBDA and turn it into CBD, which makes it much more active than CBDA or CBD acid. There are benefits to both. I know the popular things are to decarb and et cetera, but again, this is all a symphony. Understanding that every botanical changes with heat, light, temperature, age, and really being able to experiment and study with it will empower you to be able to know how you want to use it. So once you've done the decarbing and the winterizing, then that's when you'll distill the plant material, and you can do that through rotovape, which is spinning with the alcohol, and it vacuums out that to where what you're left is a distillate like this, or falling film. What I've seen with the big guys is they all start out with roto, and then they're switching over to the falling film based on time and performance. They can do a lot more material with the falling film a lot quicker. Once you have the distillate, then the next phase would be if you wanted to take it to an isolate. That's popular if you end up with a distillate that might be dirty. It might have pesticides. It may have other issues. Then that's where they'll use a pentane and they put it in a freezer and then the crystals form and they fall through, and that's what creates that isolate. And that's where it's done very cheaply overseas. There's a lot of synthetics, and again, that's where I said cautionary. If you go down that route, you better know your sourcing. And I mean, the one that went bad for me was referred to me through a head of an organization that I belonged to, that they had done a background check on, that was a pharmacist, that then referred me to a pharmacist at a university, and that's who ripped me off. They said that they had it in their laboratory, and they didn't. They sold it, so then they just outsourced it. And then it went to a broker, to a broker, to a broker, to a publicly traded company who's still not compensated the client in the end. So, that it's literally that bad. I mean, and how much more trusted would you have felt? Except now I know farmers that are direct, and I'm in direct with the labs, and I know where the material's grown, and we have the soil and the water testing, and I feel safe. So that was a lesson that, is embarrassing, but one that you should be aware of, because I'm an expert with botanicals, and even I, had great faith that through, the checks and balances of professionalism, that would have been a safe scenario. Thank God we were able to test it and know that it was a bad material that was sent. But that was what set off that chain of me making sure that I understood every bit about sourcing and how it works. With isolate, an easy cheat is if it's real, when you heat it, you could just put it in on a spoon with a lighter. It's going to melt instantly. If it's synthetic, it'll burn. So that's one a quick and easy way to tell. There's a few other ways, but that's why I really, really, really always encourage lab testing. And we can, again, if you're interested in that, email me and I can send. There's a can analysis out of Nevada. I really love. They have machinery that's about double the price of what most other labs that I've seen is. They were referred by the guys who test 98% of the wine in America. They're using those same machines in their can analysis in Nevada. What was that, Doug?
I know since we're running a long time, there are a few questions.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. How can I help you?
Yeah, I like the idea of the Hemp Farmers Association.
Yes.
And I can speak to it. I feel like getting into this right now, I'm completely alone in this thing. It's very daunting. And even with the restrictions now, where you can't remove flower from your growing site,
right?
You basically have to process the material on site.
Right.
And it's kind of infeasible, especially with the current state of things, to make these large investments in processing and equipment and everything. And how do you, if we're going to have that discussion, what would be the desirable products right now for me to process and distribute or sell to somebody like yourself, legally?
Right. Unfortunately, I believe, it's a gray area. So I know on this island specifically, I knew an extractor that no longer lives here, but he got the fire marshal to come out and allow for him to do distillation in his lab. And so on a small scale was doing, the ethanol extraction for personal use. I would lean on Ray Mackey. He's going to be speaking tomorrow. And actually, Ray, if you want to come up and answer for a minute on what you've experienced, he's gone through a harvest, and I went out and visited him when he was harvesting, and I said, at the time, the only thing I know of is either rosin pressing or distilling for essential oils. But he may have looked into a little bit more education on that.
You're going to have to process at whatever scale it is to turn it into money and take it off the farm. So, the law will be changing this year. There is political will to make, reasonable laws that will open up the program here in Hawaii. But it's on delay mode. I would say any kind of extract that you can make on the farm.
Like hemp and hemp is a good example. Soaking the plant in oil, heating. No, this is just a hemp seed oil, but you don't have to use hemp seed. You could use any oil. That's called maceration. We'll get into that tomorrow. And that's really what I was going to kind of touch on, the different extraction methods, because I want you guys to leave feeling like you have solutions. There's a little extractor that Tane Data, he's going to be here tomorrow. It's a tiny ethanol extractor. I'm sorry, not ethanol, but 180 proof alcohol. And you can do a little alcohol extraction with that. It's a tiny tabletop machine, and now they've come out with a bigger bulk machine. But I mean, when you got acreage, though, it's not feasible.
Yeah, it's like stay really small or figure out how we can hooey up and get bigger together is kind of where the Hawaii, the future of hemp in Hawaii is. But I think hemp juice would be able to leave the farm.
The other one that's really cool, I have a farmer friend that had 10 acres and there's cows on his property and they ate the hemp. And so now he has a contract for 5 years exporting Hawaiian hemp-fed beef. So that's a really creative one.
Stem material, can immediately be taken off the farm. As an animal bedding, I think is my highest use I've seen just today, other than the future of fiber.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to grow here for essential oils, I have mobile distillation equipment for essential oils, and that's legal. So, I mean, I believe in paying top dollar for those types of things, especially because it's Hawaiian. And that's another way that, we can then expand in making products. And I do teach workshops. I sell the stills. Terpenes are really something that they're holding value regardless of the CBD market. I've seen for true cannabis terpenes all the way up to 100,000 a kilo. The average for a liter of Canadian hemp essential oil at the very root level is 1,700 a kilo, all the way up to 2,600. And then when you break that down even further, then the prices are higher. So I would really love to see a lot of strain-specific hemp essential oils. And, I'm working with a lot of geneticists in the mainland. We've got a program. We're going to be doing a little genetics nursery and cataloging in Pahrump, Nevada, and we're working with people that are cataloging the genetics of cannabis. And so, the more that we can have all these different types of extractions and the essential oils, we can start playing with them and really are at the forefront of data. We are right now in the world's biggest science experiment in history. It's an exciting time, and I love that everybody is here today asking these great valid questions and, having open hearts and minds. And again, if you have any more questions, please email me, but I'll take maybe one more. How am I on time, guys? One more minute, or?
They'll probably hoot at us when we gotta stop.
Okay, fair enough. Hi.
My question is regarding seeds. I was just wondering, in Hawaii in particular, is it very important where the seeds come from? And then also with an expanding hemp market, the seeds that are produced here, are there unique or special opportunities because of the kind of varieties that can be grown?
Absolutely. I think that feminized seeds are what's most popular right now because if you have male seeds, they can pollinate your crop and have it not be as bountiful. I also know there's some gentlemen, though, that are wanting male seeds and exploring that because everyone else is just getting rid of them. So, I would say identify what you want for your farm and make sure that if you're wanting to do a larger scale, don't just buy seeds and hope that they're great. Check them. The female seeds have like a little dome. The male seeds have a pointy part. They'll sell packs of what's called feminized seeds. You want to make sure that you're like around 7th generation is where you're going to see stability. If you have younger generations, there can be instability, and in older generations, it'll start to revert back as well. So really making sure that when you're purchasing your seeds that you've got it from a source that, now they're coming out with certified seeds through the Department of Ags. So checking in on that. Ray, you look like you want to contribute a little bit on that as well. You can see it on your face. Yeah, and then Doug too. He's got some great ones. So I'm not opposed to sharing the mic with you, gentlemen. This is going to be all weekend.
If you want to bring in approved hemp genetics, you'll have to go through the channels of being a licensed grower in the state. If you want to everybody has good hemp genetics under their medical license or whatever. You're not going to be allowed to grow them until they're tested and approved in the state program. So if you want to, we all have good genetics, but, whether it's actually allowed to be grown here in the state at commercial levels is not going to be available.
All right, and Doug, what did you want to say to that?
I think he's summoning us to lunch, but I'll talk more about this at whatever time that is. 2:30 is the next session.
You're up next. Yeah.
2:30. Yeah.
Let me check. I
Pretty
pulled
sure
up the
it's
thing.
2:30. And so I'll be talking a lot about this type of thing, but I'm a little bit against the grain on the current
2:30.
female only and flower market. It's definitely an option. But just to give a little bit of a mainland perspective, because what Ray said, of course, is correct about rules within Hawaii. Hawaii is, at the moment, one of the later, I'm putting this politely, later developing, slower developing programs.
We're
but
late
it is,
bloomers.
it is happening. So, for instance, Greg Smith here from the Big Island has been cultivating fantastic CBD cultivars, Sensimilla style, if you know what I mean, female, right? So just to give us a different perspective, prior to 10 years ago, almost no one on the planet grew Sensimilla style hemp, and now 70 to 80% of people do. For 8,000 years, people have been primarily growing dioecious hemp, male and female. So I have a theory that everybody's happier when dating, trying to go across different from the herd. The cultivars that I'm developing are dioecious, so there's a lot of that goes along with that. It's all I'm trying to convey right now in a minute is it's a big tent, and that there's more going on. One other thing about feminized, there's really no such thing as 100% feminized. So even if you are growing feminized seed, and I have friends that really like feminized seed, you have to walk your field and be a farmer and watch what's going on, because as I've noticed in my goat herd, it only takes one boy to make a lot of ladies pregnant.
That's right.
So
And issues that I've seen in California with wineries, specifically in Sonoma County, is they're getting pollination from hemp crops into their grapevines. So as you decide you want to grow, be mindful of your neighbors, because you don't want to affect their crops negatively. You know, it's a team effort here, and the more education that you can have and prepare yourself ahead of time, the better successful you'll have, not only for yourself, but your neighbors. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to everybody later.
A wealth of knowledge. We'll see you guys. We're coming back for more hemp at 2:30, and we'll talk about the whole thing, about regenerative entrepreneurialism from genetics through marketing.
All right, great. Thank you.